Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2023 Grants Pass City Council meeting. We start our meetings off with a moment of silence, so please join me for that. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have Valerie Lovelace is online tonight, and for the moment, Councilor Pella is absent. Not sure if he's coming late. And first up, we have two proclamations tonight. Whereas fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine, and whereas there is a rise in counterfeit fentanyl pills, and whereas more fatal and non-fatal overdoses related to illicit fentanyl are occurring, and whereas illicitly manufactured fentanyl now drives the majority of overdose deaths, and whereas we are seeing an increase in hospital admissions and calls by first responders related to overdoses, and whereas substance abuse can impact anyone, and whereas substance education awareness around this issue are critical to prioritizing prevention, and whereas it is time to come together as a community to heal and move forward to protect our youth and adults and reduce the stigma around substance abuse, therefore I, Sarah Bristol, Mayor of the City of Grants Pass, do hereby proclaim May 9th, 2023 as Fentanyl Awareness and Prevention Day, and urge all city residents to join in supporting this observance. And that is a National Fentanyl Awareness Day as well. And Stacy, Lori, are you here tonight? Please step forward. You're welcome to say a few words, and Stacy is going to receive this proclamation because her family has been touched by a fentanyl death.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Bristol. I would just like to let people know and be aware of children and infants that fentanyl is affecting. I have an 8-month-old grandson that overdosed on fentanyl, and it's becoming more and more common with the younger children, and we really need to talk to our children and our grandchildren about fentanyl and let them be aware of it. I'd like to get more information into the schools. They have the DEA, Board of Education. There's a lot of information out there for teachers to be able to talk to students, even in the lower grade levels. My grandson was just beginning to learn the difference between night and day, and he was such a good baby. He's always smiling, and it's been really, really hard because this should have never happened. And if parents can talk to their children and grandchildren more and make them aware of fentanyl and the counterfeit pills and how easy it is for a child or infant to get a hold of something like that, I think it would make things a lot better and make it more possible for us to not lose children so young, or even the teenagers that we're losing too. We're losing them at a terrible rate. I mean, Oregon is like 3rd in the nation for overdoses, and we have no resources. We have less now than we did 2 years ago. It's not okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy, for sharing your story and being here tonight. Yeah, we have had a large increase in fentanyl deaths this year locally. Our next proclamation is considerably more fun if you're into water. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas drinking water serves a vital role in daily life, serving an essential purpose to health, hydration, and hygiene needs for the quality of life of our citizens. And whereas tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas the hard work performed by the entire water sector, designing capital projects, operators ensuring the safety and quality of drinking water, or a member of a pipe crew maintaining the infrastructure communities rely on to transport high-quality drinking water from its source to consumers' taps. And whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which current and future generations depend, and whereas the citizens of our city are called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, practice water conservation, and get involved with their water by familiarizing themselves with it. Now therefore I, Sarah Bristol, Mayor of the Grants Pass, do hereby proclaim May 7th through 13th, 2023 as Drinking Water Week, and urge all city residents to join in supporting this observance. And Jason's, oh, we have water guys in the back. Please step forward. Did you have something you wanted to say? Adam?
Thank you. Yeah, as a water professional that has spent the vast majority of my career in working with water resources, I personally am really thankful for this proclamation, this opportunity, and also on the behalf of all of the city employees that work with water either directly or indirectly and really push to, make sure it's there for everyone when they need it. We all thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. We do have very nice water here in Grants Pass. So sometimes award-winning, I understand, and I know you all work really hard, and kind of one of the under-recognized city services that we really depend on. So thanks for all you do.
Try to keep it quiet.
Yeah, exactly. No more Boyle notices. All right. Moving on to public hearing. Do I need to read the admonishment for this one tonight? All right. You guys get to listen to me read a lot tonight. All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an ordinance that would amend Development Code Article 11 related to tree retention and tree canopy reestablishment. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a public comment, and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Do any of the councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? And in this hearing, the decision of the council will be based on specific criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards those criteria. The criteria which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on the issue. We will now begin the hearing with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Brad Clark with Community Development. Fairly short overview for you tonight. We've talked about this a couple of times, so this is kind of just more of the formality. As you said, the consideration tonight is an amendment to our development code, Article 11. There's two sections in there. Both of them have to do with the tree deposit that is required when somebody divides their property. And it relates to your council goal to facilitate sustainable and manageable growth. So the two sections, the first one is 11.060, and this kind of lays out why you have the tree deposits. So we've had this in the code for many years, and it relates to anyone who is in a residential zone only. This doesn't pertain to anyone in commercial or downtown or any other zones, and also only pertains if you divide property. So a partition or a planned unit development or something like that. It basically says if you are going to divide your land, you have to calculate the trees, and then you have to submit the deposits that are there in that first bullet. They range between $300 and $500 a lot. The developer gets reimbursed 100% of the deposit after those plantings are completed and inspected. If they don't plant them, the city can go in and basically use the deposit to plant the trees. There was never an administration fee set up for this, so there's a lot of staff time that is actually taken to kind of manage these. We currently have, almost 30 active just right now. It does take some time, but there's no fee for it. We just take the money in and then send the money back out once the trees are inspected and make sure that they're installed and planted correctly. So you'll see in a slide, as you know, this was brought up as part of the Home Builders Association. One of their topics that they addressed is maybe one of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that we could address as something that would help the development community, and in this case also very much helps streamline our process and kind of helps out staff to reduce some time that it takes to process these. So we looked at it quite a bit, considered this to be, at this point, kind of an unnecessary check in the process, and that's really because of two reasons. One, we already have a process that you can't get your final plat recorded at Josephine County if you don't follow all your final plat requirements, and so we have that check. And then if the tree happens to be on a lot with a house, we have the certificate of occupancy that will not be given if you don't have your trees done. So that's one of the sections, and then section 11.070 is the waiver section. This authorizes a waiver of basically all or a portion of the tree deposit. If you have certain trees that are protected, it requires a written request by a tree professional, but it's really been seldom used in the past few years. So as I mentioned, in November of last year, this was one of the topics brought up in the Home Builders Association as one of their suggested improvements, and council, in your first review of that, supported the idea of repealing the tree deposit. So we prepared the application, and then last month the Urban Area Planning Commission held their public hearing, and they recommended approval to take it out of the code. This is a legislative amendment, so it's not subject to your typical 120-day rule. So here's just the text. You have this in your packets as well, of exactly what changes would take place in the code if you approve this tonight. That full section there on the right-hand side is section 2, and that I've kind of just summarized for you a lot of what that says. And then here's similarly 11.070. So the call to action, you have a recommendation from your planning commission to approve the application. The alternatives, you can proceed tonight to adopt their recommendation as submitted. You could make other changes. You could deny the text amendment, or you could continue the public hearing if you need some more information. So that's what staff has for you.
Thank you, Brad. Council, do you have any questions? No? All right. We will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on behalf of this issue? Please step forward and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
As you know, Stephen Nelson. As you know, I've spoken before about tree canopy because it's vital to our community. And I've watched the utter destruction of large groves of old trees, totally senseless for what? A few more homes, 5, 6 more homes. It would have been a nice park, but no, developers had to get the approval to take all of this grove out, totally senseless. So what I'm trying to say is, leave the trees canopy, the old tree canopy, before it's destroyed. Leave it as a green zone. It actually makes the community a better place. It's the greed of developers that have caused this to happen. I know they hate me because of that, because I'm outspoken about these things, but I was partly responsible for coming to the city and asking for tree canopy changes. The only way this is going to work is if you truly respect the old growth tree canopies and not allow developers to come in and take them all out. It's totally senseless and asinine to let greed overrule something so beautiful for our community. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Hi, I understand we have lots of beautiful trees in our parks. Living 2 houses down, we think we see them, but we really wouldn't know because it's not safe to go there anymore.
All right, is there anyone else specifically about the tree deposit? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to you, council, for discussion. Brian?
I move to adopt the ordinance amending Development Code Article 11, tree retention and tree canopy reestablishment, and have it read by title only, first reading.
Seconded by DJ. Any discussion? All right, Brian, you made the motion to adopt. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Valerie?
She's not online just yet.
Oh, okay, motion passes 7-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 11, tree retention and tree canopy reestablishment.
Thank you. Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending Development Code 11, tree retention and tree canopy reestablishment, and have it read by title only, second reading.
Seconded by Brian. All right, any discussion? All right, Rick, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 11, tree retention and tree canopy reestablishment.
Thank you. And next up, we have consideration of a resolution that would include the City of Grants Pass in the proposed formation of the Josephine County Road Service District. And this is a request on behalf of the county. And Rob, are you here to make the presentation? Step right up.
Well, good evening, Council and Mayor. I'll tee this up a little bit just so we have a bit of backstory. And I guess before I dive in, I guess to say I'm amazed at the interest in a road district. I wouldn't have seen this coming tonight, but here we are. That was a joke. Okay. So, as most people know, Josephine County has a large percentage of our acreage is federal forest land, and as such, they pay us what's called a PILT, a payment in lieu of taxes, as we are not able to manage that land for economic development. It's been going on since about 1977. It's a payment that comes through the Department of the Interior. So with that payment each year, what happens though is they then net off certain other payments that we receive in as a county. And just a quick sampling of these, there's a Refuge Revenue Sharing Act, the National Forest Fund, the Taylor Grazing Act, the Mineral Leasing Act, the Federal Power Act, and most importantly to our discussion here tonight, our Federal Forest Reserve for the County Public Works Department. So what this means is instead of a PILT payment of say $2 million, which is about what it would have been the last time around, they net off all these various other payments and they say, okay, that was your first chunk of that money, you get what's left. So the Association of Oregon Counties Road Department, of which I'm a member, they worked with the state reps in 21 to come up with a vehicle to allow us to, if we had a road district created, to accept our SRS money, ours Public Works, into that fund, hopefully then removing it from that netting against payment. So what that would look like for Josephine County is the PILT payment last year was about $1.45 million. We just got our SRS payment into my department, it was $600,000. So next year the feds will say $600,000 off the top, that is not coming. So understand this will not change what I see at Public Works, but it will potentially free up that $600,000 for the county general fund as discretionary money. Now I say potentially because this has not been fully truthed out. Klamath, Deschutes, and I believe it's Baker County are a year ahead of us on this. But at this point, there's not a legal reason why it should not work. Again, this was vetted through Association of Oregon Counties, huge bipartisan support from both the Oregon House and Senate. So at this point, we figure it is a reasonably cheap and easy gamble to try. It's going to cost us a bit of staff time to see if it works. If it does work, it'll be a bit more work for my department just in terms of accounting for that money and showing how it was expended. But from a maintenance standpoint, it would be invisible to everyone else. It will not change our road profiles, our order of repairing roads, our county roads within the city, anything like that. Honestly, if it was not for this accounting hoop, if you will, it's going to be an invisible transaction. So part of that legislation involves getting an approval of the two cities. We could have tried to carve out the cities, but that's a really messy meets and bounds and trying to come up with a legal description of what that looks like. So the board has said it's easier if we can't just get buy-in from the city of Grants Pass and the city of Cave Junction to push ahead with creating a road district. I would also add that if it's not successful and the feds find something out, because they've got far more attorneys than the city and the county do, so if it was not to pan out, I would propose to my board that we would dissolve that as soon as that became apparent. So I guess I'm open to questions at this point.
I suspect we may have some questions.
Sure.
Rick?
Thank you, Rob. So when those funds come in, are they dedicated funds, or is it just going to the general fund?
The SRS money for the roads would continue to be dedicated in that road district. The 600,000 additional that would be freed up as PILT would go to the general fund, and then that would be discretionary for the Board of Commissioners. Does that
So
make
then,
sense?
since Cave Junction, City of Grants Pass, and Josephine County are participants for that 600,000, how would it be divided up?
It would not be divided up. So that 600,000 is effectively that's part of the county payment. So effectively you're feeling the benefits, I guess, of getting that 600,000 additional dollars towards the general fund. So that could be sheriff, jail, whatever you like. But there would not be a division. The only, I guess, closest thing to a division that would be we're going to continue to repair county roads that lie within the city at the same rate we're doing now. It's not increasing my ceiling of spendable road maintenance dollars. It's increasing the general fund's usable dollars.
Okay, thank you.
DJ?
So it says the district would not require establishment of a permanent rate.
Correct.
Is it theoretically possible that it would open up an opportunity for that permanent rate?
It conceivably could, and I'll tell you the same thing I told the board, and they quickly agreed. I have no interest in creating a tax district, nor do they. That would need to come from the citizens, and with everything else, I don't see that happening. I would actively argue against it, honestly, even though it come to my department, we're okay with the funding we have, and I would not look for that to happen.
Very good, thanks.
Joel?
So if I understand what you said correctly, is it doesn't really increase the amount of money the county receives from the feds for payment in lieu of timber payments, but it gives more flexibility for the general fund compared to what it is today, which is restricted.
No, it would increase the funding. So if it was already in place for this past year, instead of like $1,450,000, they took that first 600,000 that my department got and they netted it off the top. So had this been in place, we would have gotten 2.05 million in the general fund. I still would have seen the 600,000 to public works. So it actually increases the overall take to the county by 600,000.
And then where does that money come from?
It's from the Department of the Interior, so it's,
Okay, so they actually give us more money. So they actually give us more money.
Yep.
So then why wouldn't we do this?
Exactly. Other than a nominal amount of staff time, and again, it seems too good to be true, but it's been pretty heavily vetted from Association of Oregon Counties, so I suspect 8 or 10 of us will have this queued up and then holding our breath this time next year to see if it works.
Yeah, it's still a long ways from where it used to be.
Absolutely.
Other questions? All right.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone from the public want to speak on this issue? All right, please step forward, state your name, and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
My name is Matt Morris. I do not live in the city. I live in the county. The only question I had for Rob is, usually when somebody gives you something, they want something in return. So I guess I'm directing the question towards you, Rob.
You can just comment for 3 minutes, but you can
I'll make
ask
it
questions,
quick.
but people don't have to answer.
Okay. So my question is, what do they want in return for giving us the money? Because there's no free lunch. That's my only comment.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? All right, we'll close public comment and turn it over to council. Brian.
I I move to support the initiation of proceedings by the Josephine County Board of Commissioners to form the Josephine County Road Service District.
Is there a second? Is that a second, Joel? Okay, seconded by Joel. Is there discussion?
I had a discussion item, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Joel.
Out of respect for the citizen that asked, what do you require? Could you answer that for us before we vote? Just out of respect for that.
Absolutely. We have seen no language that would put any stipulations on that money, other than, I'm guessing that we'll have to account for it a bit more tightly in our department to probably produce a quarterly report for the feds to say, yep, here's where it went. But my intent will be to keep that as easy as possible. We'd probably say it all went towards chip sealing, because I don't want to get into 1,000 here, 1,000 here. I would just say that's our chip seal budget to keep it clean.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All right, the motion was to support the initiation of proceedings to form a Josephine County Road Service District. And Brian, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Valerie? No? Okay, motion passes 7-0. All right, that brings us to our appointments, and tonight we have, you have the bright yellow sheet. It has a mistake at the top, because I believe there are there's 3 openings. So there are 3 openings on the commission. This is the Historical Building and Sites Commission. 3 candidates have applied for the Citizen at Large position, and 1 candidate has reapplied for the Local Historical Society position. So you have 1 appointment to make on the Historical Society position, and then there's 2 vacancies for Citizen at Large with 3 applicants. So our applicant for the Historical Society position is Arden McConnell, reapplying. She's been on the commission previously. And Citizen at Large, Cynthia Sherratt is reapplying, and Linda Cole and Samuel Marsh are applying. The commission has recommended Arden McConnell for the Historical Society member position. Arden has been a longtime member of the HBSC in good standing. She has a long family history in Grants Pass and is very involved with its history. She was unanimously recommended for reappointment. For the Citizen at Large vacancies, the commission recommends Cynthia Sherratt and Sam Marsh. Cynthia is currently on the commission and was unanimously recommended for being reappointed. Sam Marsh also has a long family history in Grants Pass and feels that it is incredibly important to keep the downtown vibrant and historic. All that said, it looks like you all have submitted your forms, so. All right, it looks like we have unanimously completed these forms in support of Arden McConnell on the Historical Society position and Cynthia Sherratt and Samuel Marsh for the Citizen at Large positions. Brian?
I move to nominate Cynthia Sherratt, Sam Marsh, and Arden McConnell to HBSC, Historical Building Sites Commission.
Seconded by Joel. Any discussion? All right, Brian, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item before the council tonight. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not two individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have an opportunity to respond. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government-provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. And there is a light up there that will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds left, so don't panic. You still have 30 seconds, but when the light turns red, that means that your 3 minutes are up. So please cut yourself off so that I don't have to cut you off. Also, I guess with regards to questions, if you do have any questions of the council, they may respond to you after it's over, but this isn't a back and forth discussion. It's just your opportunity to speak. So with that said, first up I have Kim Hector. Okay. Please state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city too.
My name is Kim Hector, and I've been a resident of the city for 23 years. And I'm here tonight because I'm a concerned citizen, and we're all familiar with the disaster of the Alameda fire a few short years ago. And that fire was set by a lawless individual. It burned 3,000 homes and businesses and killed 3 people. And the spirit of lawlessness has taken over our city. And my concern is that we are headed for a major disaster similar to what happened in Paradise, California, because the spirit of lawlessness has taken over our city. And it's a very scary proposition. And we see it in the crime blotter every day. It's no reflection on law enforcement or the fire marshal, but we have lawless individuals in our city that would do something as horrible as setting a fire with no concern about people's safety or the lives or property of other people. So I hope our city is prepared for a disaster like that, because it's headed our way. And you can see that lawlessness is out of control in our city. And that's all I have to say.
Colleen Hector.
Yeah, I questioned whether or not it was productive coming here, but I'm glad I have come here tonight. I've been a biker for my entire life, and I used to enjoy biking through the city parks. We have beautiful parks here with trees and rivers, and it's just gorgeous. But it's kind of scary now. I was approached. I've seen machetes, gentlemen walking down the street with machetes. I saw a man waving a blade in the air. One gentleman approached me on my bicycle, grabbed my bicycle from the front, and I don't know how I had the power to say, no, this is my bike, because he was ready to do I don't know what, and he just appeared, and I was in Riverside Park on the sidewalk, that bike trail along this West Park. I used to enjoy biking from Reinhardt All Sports Park, across the bridge, through Tussing, down West Park, going to Baker, so I didn't have to cross the busy street, going underneath the street. Now, there's so many homeless in the park, I can't go underneath the bridge anymore in Baker Park. It's scary. You're so concerned about what's going to happen to the homeless. How about what happens to the citizen, the law-abiding citizen who obeys the rules, who wears the red thing, the lights on the bicycle? What happens when someone hurts me? Isn't anyone concerned about the citizens in this town? We seem to be overly concerned about the homeless, or the lawless, as my husband put it. And I don't see anything being done. It's getting worse. In Walmart, there was a killing the other day. Someone went crazy in the park. It's a scary thing to go to the grocery store. You're approached by people. You don't know what they're going to do. I use a cane. How am I going to fight back? What am I going to do? I think it's time to do something about this before you do have a disaster. So I hope something gets done, and I appreciate the officers, and now the policemen are garbage men, picking up syringes. That's it. I hope I don't have to move back to like Wisconsin, where I was originally from. It's too cold to be homeless.
Catherine Hamilton.
Hello, my name is Catherine Hamilton, and I live in the county. After the last meeting, it was brought up that we should talk to our buddies about one who voted for 110, talk to Tina Kotex, talk to the enablers. I'm a mom, I don't know how to, I'm here for the people that are in charge of the city. My guess, as far as politics go, we got to start at the base. I just can't call Tina Kotek. I don't know anybody that voted for 110. This has just gotten so insane. I read just in the paper today that Washington State, their drug, whatever it is going to be up, June 1st. If they don't approve that to continue with the drug, all those people are going to come down here. We're going to get even more people. They're trying to do something in Medford, apparently, with camping ordinances, I don't know how they're trying to word it. If they kick one person out of Medford, are they going to go to Ashland or Talent? I'm going to guess they're going to come to Grants Pass, because we got hand washing stations, outhouses in Riverside Park. We got Sharps dispensers in the bathrooms. This is wonderful. You guys didn't like cat feeding stations at Baker Park. You were concerned with the liability of a feral cat scratching or biting somebody. But you got machete-wielding drug addicts in the park. I'm confused. I don't have, apparently if you've got to put them somewhere, then pick one park. If you guys are in charge of the parks, put one park. Pick one park. Get them out of all of the parks. Put them in one place. If we do not have any money coming from the state, which apparently we don't have a homeless problem in the state, then maybe we should treat them and call them campers. And they're all illegal campers. If we're not going to get any of the $220 million that Kotek is going to be handing out, which is our tax dollars, some of our tax dollars, maybe they should be campers and just retitle them. Thank you.
Cynthia Neff. And then Rose Turnbull will be next.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Neff. I have lived here over 20 plus years. I'm a homeowner. And I've had several experiences at the local parks lately. And I've got a 6-year-old grandson and a 4-year-old grandson that I took to the park 2 weeks ago, Thursday at 10:15 a.m. And my grandkids came to me. I was sitting on the parking lot side of Riverside Park and watching my boys play. And they came running up to me and they said, Grandma, that stinks, it stinks. And so I went to where they said the smell was coming from, and I noticed a lady smoking pot. I could smell the difference between pot and tobacco. She was smoking pot. And so I called the police, and they said it is against the law. But they were busy dealing with another homeless situation with tons of stuff and garbage that they had to move. So another issue was when I went to Baker Park and pulled in there with my grandkids, there's just filth everywhere. There's pizza boxes, there's just filth everywhere. And my grandkids say, what is all this, Grandma? This never used to happen. 20 plus years ago, when I was raising my kids here, this didn't happen. And when I was at the park, after that lady smoking the pot, I was approached. I was on top of the Riverside parking lot, or the Riverside play structure, watching my grandkids play. And some homeless person had just come with his bags, asked me if I had money for alcohol. And I said, you need to go on. And so he walked around the park and stood there. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe with my grandkids. My grandkids are noticing this. I don't think this is the proper place. I don't think as a taxpayer I should be paying for people to be repurposed as living at our parks. We have the Gospel Rescue Mission. They don't want to live at the Gospel Rescue, or they don't want to live there. Why? Because there's rules. If they don't want to live in a religious-based Gospel Rescue Mission, make a different place where it's not a religious-based, but make it a home or a place for something where there's accountability. They have to, get a job. They have to find things. I'm so tired of seeing able-bodied people walking around, lugging their stuff around, but yet we have, job issues. There shouldn't be job issues. Thank you.
Rose Turnbull. And then Sam Neff.
I'm Rose Turnbull, and I live in Grants Pass, and real short, I am adopted, and I've been here since I was 8 and a half and 32.
Could you step up to the mic so we can
Yes.
hear you?
You can
Thank
pull
you.
it down a little. There you go.
I'm 32, and anyway, that doesn't matter. But what I stated that because I would hate for Guatemala to actually be in Grants Pass because of the park issues. And there was one incident that happened a couple months ago that I was, or a couple weeks ago. I was babysitting these two kids and I was getting paid for it. And then they were playing at the Morrison Park, and there was these two little kids that came to me, and I was like, I don't know where they came from. They were just randomly playing there, and then there was a tent, and there's a whole bunch of junk and everywhere. Anyway, I was like basically babysitting them the whole time, and the little girl urinated on the equipment, and it's like, this is not okay to see that, and to see that these little kids are trying to play on the equipment, and then there's urine on that, and also it's just filthy, and it smelled everywhere, and who other kids want to be on the equipment after someone just urinated, and the parents have not even came out of the tent to take care of it or anything, and not even, just careless, and just, I hope that we could do something about all the homeless and everything, that it won't become Guatemala, because I'm telling you, it's horrible. I've lived it, it's awful, and I just hope and pray that it's not like that. And also another thing that really bothered me too was I went to Riverside Park, and I was walking with my little nephew, he's 4, and this lady was just screaming and shouting, she's like, ma'am, do you have some meth for me? And I looked at her, I was like, what in the heck are you asking that? And the little nephew's like, he doesn't know what that is, it's like, why do we want to expose that to little children? I hope and pray that we don't end up like Guatemala, because I don't. This country is beautiful. America is beautiful.
Sam Neff. And then Hannah McCoy is next.
I'm Sam Neff. I've lived in Grants Pass for 26 years. In those 26 years, I've seen this town just, it's horrible. Why are we allowing this? What can we as taxpayers do about this? And it breaks my heart to see grandkids we can't take to the park because there's needles on the ground that they could step on, get hepatitis. You go into the bathrooms and you're walking around over sleeping people in the bathrooms. We as people of Grants Pass can do better, and we should do better.
Hannah McCoy.
My name is Hannah McCoy. I reside in town, the city of Grants Pass. And first off, I'd like to thank all the counselors who are supporting us, and we appreciate your efforts to solve the homeless issues. And I've lived in both the county and the city, and I believe that county residents should be able to and have the right to vote on city issues. Many Josephine County residents outside of the city own businesses here in town, And what they have to deal with weekly, even daily, is absolutely ridiculous. They are constantly making repairs to their properties, fixing cut fences, cleaning up several bags of trash all the daily, weekly, and even have to clean up human feces to open up their doors in the mornings, which is sad to even have to say that. And Josephine County, like, everyone comes to Grants Pass to do their grocery shopping, doctor's appointments, even take their kids to school, and they'd like to take them to their kids to the parks as well. But unfortunately, we can't do that because, like everyone else has been saying, they are covered with homeless people, needles, drug paraphernalia everywhere, and it's just not safe for anyone to really go there, honestly. So all of Josephine County deserves a voice. Everyone comes to Grants Pass to do everything, and they all have a voice in regards to all the chaos that the homeless are causing, and thank you.
Tom Michelini?
Hey, that's me. My name's Tom McElhenney, and I lived all my life up in Lynn County. I retired from Weyerhaeuser. At that point, I went to Wyoming for 11 years, and my wife said, let's go back to Oregon. So we chose Grants Pass, and we moved here 4 years ago. We invested our life savings to buy a condo on Riverside Park because it was just so beautiful. They pitched the tents right underneath our bedroom window, and we get to listen to them yell and scream and cuss and swear and throw their garbage around. And the other day I got to sit there on my back porch and I watched a man shooting up, and when he nodded out, I called the police. And they said, would you like us to do a welfare check? And I said, yes. An hour later, a policeman drove by, did not stop, just continued on through. Went out to my dumpster the other day, and there was a man laying there in his puke, overdosed. We thought he was dead, but apparently he lived. I go down to the park, and people are running around with machetes and switchblades, and there's stabbings and shootings. And I came in here a year ago, and I'm not going to mention a name, but when I said something, somebody on the council up here said, I've never heard anything. Why don't we know anything about this? And I talked to the police, and they said, well, we have a meeting once a week, and we tell this person what's going on down there. And I'm thinking, somebody is lying to us. I don't want to name names, but my wife and I, we are afraid to walk through the park. They're coming on our property. They're stealing from us. They're breaking into our cars. In our day, if you didn't work, you didn't eat. Oh, and Max's Mission is passing out syringes. And I went down and I talked to them at the park there. And I said, why don't you go over to where the people are? And Max's Mission told me they do not feel safe over there, so they come over to our side of the park because they do not feel safe. So they would rather bring the unsafe to us. And thank you very much.
Suzanne Morsa?
I can tell I'm not the only one with many of the same issues. I live in Grants Pass. I'm 85, and I retired a year ago from caregiving for the elderly. I have a concern for other elderly besides myself. I moved to Grants Pass 16 years ago. I loved Grants Pass. My son lived here. I just was so anxious to live here. It was so safe and beautiful. And now so much of it is not, and it breaks my heart. The parks, I couldn't believe a little town had that many parks. And they were so well cared for. And it was just, I came from California, obviously, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful change in things. I can't walk in the park anymore like everyone else. Apparently, Riverside Park I gave up on like 2 years ago because I was accosted and I was not safe. I walked through Tussey Park and across the bridge to the All Sports many, many times. Can't go there anymore. I waited a long time to be retired because I worked till I was 84, and now I am restricted. I take my walks. I go from Petco to Goodwill, and then from Goodwill back to Petco, as many times as I'm able to do that to stay healthy, because I want to take care of myself. And I walk with my keys through my fingers. Now, I know anybody attacked me, I'm an old lady, but it's something. Anyway, my purse is locked up. I don't take my purse anywhere where I go because I'm fearful of being accosted. I just never go to Walmart anymore. But I have one thing to say. I'll keep this short. I want to ask you this. Okay, this is really hard for me. I may just have to read it if I can see it. I'm waiting for the day, and I'm afraid it's going to come soon, when we're going to read Elder Grants Pass, American citizen, attacked in Grants Pass in our local news. And it breaks my heart. Please do something. You guys are all really smart. So are we. Let's do something before it's too late.
David Dapper.
Wow. I was here Monday, and Chief Hensman brought the concerns of a neighborhood living by Riverside Park, and it was said that, there were a few complainers. Well, I believe it or not, I went door to door in that neighborhood, and it's not a few complainers. There's an entire street full of hardworking homeowners and retired homeowners that are scared to be in their own damn front yards. And this needs to include not just East Park Street, but that Vista Drive down the other side where the little lady says she won't even go in her front yard. Most of these people are terrified. They should feel safe on their own front yard. Don't you believe? I mean, these are people crying for your help, not just a few complainers. This is an entire hardworking part of our community that needs our support. And to be appreciated is more than just a few complainers that should be safe in their yards and be able to at least brave to go out in them. And I was thinking, since none of us can use the parks anyway, let's, instead of firing police and firemen, why don't we just sell the parks to maybe someone that can run them, privatize them, or just defund them, and who knows, maybe the people living in there shooting up will mow the lawns and water them. But we can't use them, we don't want to pay for them. And there's a group of us got together a couple weeks ago, and I was just hoping 3 people would show up. 15, 20 people, and more now. And we're going to meet again at Tussin Park, I believe Sunday at 1 o'clock, and I'll be out front for anyone who would like to sign up. And doing nothing isn't working. Maybe anyone else has some ideas they'd like to add to that? Maybe we need to solve this problem ourselves, because what you're doing ain't working, and I think you can hear that tonight. And I'll be out front for any comments for anyone that would like to get informed and join up with us, and let's fix this ourselves. Thank you.
Mike Slotemaker.
Good evening. My name is Mike Slotemaker. I am a resident of Grants Pass. I live just upstream of Baker Park. We have about 3 acres of wooded property there. And I was going to give a quick 90-day status update from when I was here in February. But at 6:52, 4 minutes ago, I just had somebody walking through my backyard. So I'll be leaving right after this to go make sure we get them shoved off the property. So when I was here in February, I had the opportunity to talk about somebody I'd been with leading a class. It said, when you're faced with a situation, ask yourself 3 questions. I'm sure you remember this. What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? And what do I need to learn? So I was here, and we noticed that the transients were getting a little more aggressive. This was in February. And out of that came opportunity to engage with several members of the leadership of this city. And I'm here to say that that has been a process, and we're seeing a result of that process. And I was going to tell you I haven't seen any one of my cameras for 6 weeks, and literally 4 minutes ago, here comes somebody. I find that ironic, and I'm okay with it. But what this leadership team has done is provided me with solutions to say, have you tried doing this? Remember I said, what do I need to learn? This leadership team has said, have you put up keep out signs and private property signs? I've now put 30 of those up around the property, high in the trees. That's helping. What this leadership team has done was engage me with the police chief. And I said, Chief Hensman, check this out. We have a machete that we found. We have a club that we found. We had a makeshift spear, all within 100 feet of my house. He sent a bulletin out to his team to say, guys, be aware of this stuff. We are having small solutions come. We're dealing with what the Grants Pass problem is in a certain way that we can. There are bigger issues here that are state of Oregon and federal issues, and I get that. But I want to say thank you, and I appreciate the feedback I've gotten from this team. It goes even more. There's a lot of garbage in our 3 acres, a lot of garbage. I've been spending every weekend several hours hauling that garbage to the property line. Yes, the syringes, yes, the drugs, yes, the urine-soaked sleeping bags. I buy a lot of gloves at Home Depot. And now there's a member here on this team that said, we're going to look into getting a dumpster for you so that we can at least throw that in right there at the edge of Baker Park. We're going to see if there's some funds for it. Here's what I'll say. If you can't find the funds, I'll write a check. We're going to take care of this problem. And now, for the first time in 6 weeks, there's somebody on my property. That's a good run. So I'm going to leave now. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go get this person before they take all their blankets and set up a camp. And if I have any issues with it, Chief Hensman, I'll reach out to your fine officers and they'll be able to help. Thank you. I appreciate this team. I know it seems like there's a lot. It's a process. But the input you're providing is very helpful. Have a good evening.
Cassie Aviles? No Cassie? How about Mike Pelfrey?
Mayor, City Council, staff, not my staff by no means, but I'll say city leadership I meant. I think the overwhelming subject line tonight speaks volumes to what our citizens are dealing with in our local parks. I mean, it is beyond scary. And, you know, if you think about all these needles, and then I find it ironic that this discussion is taking place after the proclamation, recognizing the fact that fentanyl is so dangerous. And, you know, we had the lady come up here and talk about a child overdosing from fentanyl. Now imagine what is floating around in our parks. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, this is just the stuff that people find. What about the stuff that we don't see? And I'm telling you, it is a lot out there. So the county commission this morning had a discussion. I believe you guys need to do your job and work with our county. Our parks are a biohazard. They are a health hazard to the citizens of Grants Pass. The health department needs to get involved. And my suggestion is, and I pray that this happens, that the county decides to close our parks. And when I say close our parks, I don't mean to say here homeless group of people go to Tussing and do, no, close all of our parks. The majority of our parks, because they are a cesspool. And that's lightly. The other thing that I want to, so please keep that on your radar, because the county commission was talking about this morning. They are going to explore that. You guys need to work with them as a team. This is the city of Grants Pass, located in the county of Josephine. Work together. The other thing a big concern of mine is the overwhelming number of groups. Someone mentioned Max's Mission. I also have witnessed groups that are feeding the homeless. Here's what happens. They come in, they mean well, right? I don't know about Max's mission. I'm a little concerned about passing out needles in the park. That to me is probably the worst case of enabling I've ever heard of. It's one thing to hand someone a dollar bill on the street. It's another to hand them a needle to go put drugs into that they may very well die from. So that's, to me, very irresponsible. But if you're going to allow these people in our parks to give out trash, when I say trash, when you give out food, shelter, water, then you need to be responsible that those people need to pick up after all of the things that they've left in our park. Max's mission, if they are in fact handing out needles, perhaps Max's mission needs to stay around while after the drug addict is done using the needle and collect the needle from him. Thank you.
Amber Kuntz.
Hi, I'm Amber. I've lived in Grants Pass for 4 years. For lack of better phrase, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm sure you guys have been hearing this a lot. It's kind of a bummer to come here. I've never done anything like this, but I live near West Home Park. I bought a house there 4 years ago to come and work in healthcare here. And I bought this house because it doesn't have a yard, but it was within throwing distance of West Home Park. 3 years ago, they pulled out all of the play structure there, and we waited for 3 years to get it back, and they're finally putting it in, but now I'm competing with all the homeless that live there. They go with their dogs not on leashes, so I can't walk with my kids because the dogs are constantly running at my kids. My son plays t-ball there, and one of them actually had set up their tent on home plate. So a volunteer coach had to go and ask these people to move. That's not their job. They shouldn't have to do that. Why is that what we're having to deal with when we all pay pretty decent amount in property taxes to have said park that I chose to live near so my tiny children could play? So I hope that, I don't envy your guys' job. I chose not to do politics for a very strong reason, so I can't imagine what you have to deal with, but I'm sure some of you have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews that want to be able to play safely in a park, play t-ball, and not have to ask them to move their tents and their trash and their dogs. So just like everybody else, please help.
Denise Mao.
Hello, my name is Denise. I live in Grants Pass, and we moved here a year and a half ago. I also work in healthcare, and we bought a beautiful property across from Riverside Park, and we feel so blessed to live here, have that beautiful view. And I will say this Saturday, we woke up to the alarm of somebody yelling at the geese to get gone because the geese were invading his space. And so that was what we woke up to 6 a.m. And we enjoyed, it was a beautiful sunny day. So we were there by the river, and my kids watched a man get undressed completely naked and take a bath in the river. So they got to see that for the first time. And my sister visited from California recently, and she took my kids and her kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So she took our kids to Riverside Park, and she actually had to call my husband because she was scared, which is really unusual because, I mean, we're from LA, Skid Row, you know, so she was scared in Grants Pass, which is really sad because Grants Pass is such a beautiful and I think safe place. And I will say that I know that they're supposed to move, I think, every 72 hours, but because I have a really good view, they changed the tops of their tents. So I don't know if you guys were aware of that. Like, I don't know. So I don't know if they're getting away with that because they're changing the colors of it. And then also, we're also part of T-ball. And we had to recently change where we practice to Fort Vanoy. So because the T-ball coach just didn't feel safe practicing in the parks anymore. Thank you.
Linda King.
I just learned, my name is Linda King, but I just learned that you got a letter from me today. And I'm here because I live next door to West Home Park. I've lived there since 1982 and I'm ready to move. Real estate tells me that my home is devaluated because of the people living in the park. They don't put their tents down. Sometimes there's up to 10 people. They urinate on my fence. They peek through where we can't even use our backyard. They're roaring up and down the streets all hours of the night, visiting people in the park. We have the police out there almost every day, and they should not have to be cleaning up after these people. They got better things to do. But I have had a business license, a home business license for many years, and I cannot reopen my business after COVID because of the home dwellers or the tent dwellers using it as a campground. And I feel that homeowners' rights are being taken away from them, their homes are being devaluated, and I think something needs to be done to protect the rights of homeowners.
Brian Weller?
Yeah, my name is Brian Weldon. I am a county resident. I've been in Grants Pass for about 10 years now. I can't believe the decay in this town and the county in the last 10 years since I moved here. I live down Lower River Road and all the parks are a mess. Riverside Park's probably the worst. I used to love going to the car shows there and the other parks, and now the car show moved away because they can't have the liability. It's all about liability. A lot of these groups have a ton of liability insurance. They cannot allow a child to step on a needle or someone to get hurt from the homeless people with their hatchets and whatever. This park, all of them, Riverside, Baker, Tussing, have gone all the way to the bottom of hell, and we need, as residents, to fix this problem. We really, really do. Yesterday, I went to the Public Health Department and spoke to them, DEQ, about testing the ground at Riverside Park, Tussing Park, Baker Park, and the head director said that he was already discussing this. I went to the commissioners' meeting this morning, and it's under discussion now. That would turn off all the parks for 30 days. I think that's a good idea. We need to clean up the parks. Why is it there's no more rules in the park? There's rules for me, there's rules for taxpayers, but a homeless person can sit right over here in front of the world and shoot heroin. Or defecate or urine in the bushes. What if I did that? I'd be in jail. There is zero rules for those living in the parks. There's no more curfew. Why are they there 24/7? The rest of us would like to use the park. So now the tax-paying, law-abiding, honest people are removed from the park and the homeless own it. What a great deal. I know hundreds of people around the county that are now moving to another state because of the destruction and the decline of our county. Thank you.
Brenda Sisson? And then Stephen Nelson will be next.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Sisson, and I am not a city dweller. I live in the county. But I have been coming to these meetings for quite some time because of the homeless issue of Grants Pass, which spills off over on us because we come to Grants Pass to do our shopping and our business. I hear a lot of complaining with the people, and they're getting a little bit more emotional about this because of the frustration. There must be some kind of ordinance that you folks can come up with to restrict these people. You can't put them in a camp. They're not pets to keep. You can't tell them to stay in an area because they're roamers, they're nomads. They don't respect society rules and laws like we do. They don't have that in their agenda, in their mental makeup. They don't have it because they are allowed to be roamers, to do the lawless thing of taking their clothes off in the park and getting in the river as though it's 1960. That doesn't exist anymore. And it shouldn't be allowed. There should be ordinances, CC cameras in the park where somebody can sit behind monitors and see what's going on. Some kind of regulations. And you folks are responsible for this. But we're not seeing improvement. The police department are doing everything they can. I've gone to these meetings where they can remove a person for 30 days, and it's what the officer said, it's whack-a-mole or whatever that game is, because they just go from one thing to another and cover up their tent with a different color. They're very smart people. They're not stupid. But as long as they can get away with what they're doing, this fentanyl, that is an invited problem that has been handed down by the laws and restrictions of the police officers being able to keep this reined in and making it illegal. They can do what they want. It's your job to find the ordinances to keep our society safe and the citizens free.
I think I said Stephen Nelson was next. And then Carol McPherson.
I will change the topic for a little bit. Recently, I received a copy of an email sent to a permit contact distribution list to remind builders and contractors and permit applicants about demolition requirements. I will read one line of that letter. Take appropriate measures to suppress dust in and around the construction site. Therefore, a water truck or other approved mitigation measure must be on site when demolition is occurring. As you know, I have been coming here for a number of years with the aim of getting developers and contractors to legally and safely do their demolition projects. I do appreciate that city officials have followed suit and sent the email as I requested. The demolition permit process reminder is necessary as some developers and contractors have not been legal and safe. They knew that, but they chose to do that. My concerns are these. Asbestos is regulated and recognized by state and city officials. But the other hazards, black mold, fiberglass insulation, rodent contamination, fiberglass insulation, meth chemical residue, soil botulism, are not regulated and yet harmful if airborne and breathed. They're not regulated and so they're overlooked at job sites. I once spoke with a hazard mitigation specialist locally, and he told me there are hundreds of potential hazards if the safeguards are not in place before the work begins. My point is this. The email will only be effective if city officials agree to enforce the ordinance. And if those who violate the law are not held accountable, then the law becomes ineffective for two reasons. The community was not protected from careless and illegal demolition, and the violators don't pay for not being held accountable. I've seen this happen too many times. The city has a responsibility to enforce the law. Developers have a responsibility to abide by the law. And thus, the community will be safer for that reason. Thank you.
Carol McPherson. And then David Belcher.
Council and Mayor, Carolyn Pearson, a resident of the city. As a child, I was a homeless person. But beyond that, what was taught by my mother was, just because we are poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty, and a bar of soap would take care of that. Plus the fact we were never allowed to leave a mess for somebody else to clean up. The state of our parks, none of these people are accountable for the mess, for what they're endangering our children with. This is ridiculous. It seems as if they've been empowered, that they are now the bully and they have the power, and we as taxpayers have zilch. Something must be done, and we're pleading with you people to somehow or another, as one woman suggested, let's do an ordinance. But this is unthinkable what's going on. Even the motels that are across from Riverside Park, the Rogue River, they watch people bathe, defecate, whatever you want, urinate in the Rogue River. We talk about health and environmental issues, and these people are just throwing it back in our face. Please help us, and thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Carol McPherson, and I just moved up to Grants Pass 3 years ago. I started coaching a master's team over at the YMCA. I did this for 45 years in California, so I thought I retired, but maybe I haven't. But anyway, my group was very concerned about the caveman pool, hearing that it was going to close for the summer, because we go over there in the summer to work out rather than be at the Y, because the water in there is very hot and we like to get outside. So anyway, one of my teammates got together with some people and started, finding out who they could talk to get the pool back open, and that was Emily Godot. And so we found out yesterday that the pool is going to be back open for us for the summer. So whoever did this and handled it, we wanted to thank you, all 16 of us. Okay? Thank you.
David Belcher.
Hi, my name is David Belcher. I'm a resident of Josephine County, and I want to thank each one of you for the time this evening to listen to us. And although it does seem small in the larger consideration, just adding on to what Ms. McPherson was just saying, keeping Caveman Pool open for the summer is a nice thing. My niece worked there the last couple summers. It's a small safe haven for families, for children, to beat the heat, to have a nice place to be in the summertime. So just real simply, thank you for keeping it open, and hopefully that's something we can build upon.
Nina Aholt.
My name is Nina Aholt, and I do live in Grants Pass, and I'm here to talk about the Glencrest Way cottages. And I'm hoping that I'm talking about it before it happens and that you actually listen to what I'm saying. I want to make sure that you understand that I totally support the veterans. Donate to them all the time. I totally support everything about them. However, because this land has been donated to put houses on it for the veterans, does not mean it's the best place for this to go. The road that Glencrest Way is coming out onto, Clover Lawn, is one of that corner and the next corner are one of, I think, 3 corners that are the worst corners in the county. So the traffic is going to be terribly hard on that area. There's no public transportation for them to get into the city. If you put in 16 tiny homes on 2 acres, you're going to be adding a huge burden on the transportation. There are no sidewalks or gutters. There's no medical. There's no stores close by, so they're going to have to be able to get into town. If you drive up Glencrest Way and you have to come back out onto Clover Lawn, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, it's my understanding that DOT restricted the building because it is such a high-trafficked area. So I just hope that you really look at some of these issues. And anyway, I'm just hoping that you really consider everything that is happening on that project.
That's all the cards I have tonight. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? Please step up and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
My name is Tim Mitchell. I don't live in the city. I live in Merlin. And Merlin doesn't have the homeless problem as much as Grants Pass. And the reason for that is they don't have the services. They don't have the warming shelters. They don't have kitchens come out there as far as I know. So I feel safe in Merlin. Even walking at night, I don't have a problem with that. If you take away the services, you stop feeding them, stop giving them warming shelters, the problem's going to go away. But all you're doing I'm not talking about any individual here, but the people that are providing those services are inviting them. And they will tell their friends in Portland. And what will happen is it'll grow the problem. And then we'll be like little Portland, with businesses shuttered. Maybe the Antifa might come down too. So they're just going to grow in numbers as long as we feed them. There are towns in Oregon or small cities that don't have this kind of problem because they don't support them. And that's all I have to say about that. Just basically, that's the key to stopping this.
Just step up and state your name, Rika.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. Well, I was complaining about the condition of our parks long before it became fashionable. About weeds that are just ignored, some of them noxious. I gotta say, lately they have improved, at least at the All Sports Park, which I live near. And I also live near West Home Park. I'm about a lot closer to West Home Park. And I'm happy to see the playground finally being rebuilt. We lately have had an influx of homeless there, all of maybe half a dozen tents the other night, and I noticed the trash cans were overflowing, but what I also noticed is the trash was not away from the trash cans. It was not everywhere. It has not been everywhere for all this summer, this last season and last year. So you know, what I see here is that people are all of a sudden suddenly noticing the homeless because there are tents. And we can get away from tents. People shouldn't have to live in tents. We have failed to serve the bottom of the housing market for 50 years, and this is where it's got us. We heard a man earlier talking about, lawlessness. That started this discussion. And yet they are asking the city council and the mayor to be lawless. It's not like they want people camping in our parks. It's not like you want people camping in our parks. It's that a judge has put an injunction on enforcing our camping ordinance. We don't need new ordinances, we already got one. And all we need to do to be able to enforce it again is to build something big enough to handle the problem. To create shelters, low barrier shelters, not expecting you to do a lot. And we can do that. And not only that, the government doesn't have to do it. It can be done privately, and I have the new idea that was asked for earlier. Thank you.
Dale Aldridge, in the city. I came up here 35 years ago and brought five of my boys to take vacation. And I wear this shirt because I'm an Uber driver now, and I can see it. My fiance has a shop just a block or two off the park, and every day we got to body tackle people from going into our bathroom and trashing it. I have a grandson, and I'm sure all you guys got grandchildren. Do you remember back a few years ago, a thing called Frog Affair? To see that park from one end to the other full of kids? You wouldn't even think about that now, because it's out of control, totally out of control. I was a scout leader, and I rented that park for 7 years for a Scoutorama. And I'm a tree plant person, and this town was so beautiful, it's being destroyed by that beautiful park. When you said last week we're going to make all that money from the people living in hotels to promote tourism, yeah, they're going to pull up with a jet boat, look across the street and say, wow, look at that. There's somebody swimming in the river. There's someone shooting up. There's someone crapping right there. We got to do something about this now. You can't wait. And I'm going to be here every meeting from here on out, and I hope everybody in this room fills this room 3 or 4 times till somebody does something. The whole thing started with one judge, right? They'd have to provide a spot for them to go. Go to Medford. They're clear the parks. They have a tent city, a huge tent behind one of the businesses. And yes, they have access to buses there. And their problem, they don't just move it from park to park or tell them they got to be banned for 1 day or week or whatever. They kick them out of the park. They clear that park out. We need to do the same thing. Not just Riverside Park, but every park, so we all can walk. And I take my grandson down to that park on a regular basis. And I will never go to the bathroom anymore because I've seen everything you possibly can see in that bathroom. Please, do something. Find a space that they can go to and set up their tent. We don't have to have some fancy building, just a lot. You have city lots, I'm sure everywhere, county lots somewhere that you can start off with. They were told they can't stay there because there was no place the city put them. Find a place for them to go. And yes, I live 1 block from the Gospel Mission. I've never had a problem. I'm 3 or 4 blocks from the Foundry place and the Sobering Center. Never have a problem. But wherever you put it, people are going to complain, but it's for the good for the whole city. You're going to lose your tourism dollars, and that's what I came here for. And I did cable here for 26 years. And I tell you what, if I saw this park now, I wouldn't want to move here. Thank you.
Next. You only get 1 chance to speak, sorry. You can come back next week for another 3 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is William Gurnant. I live 1 house outside of the city. I moved here 7 months ago with my wife. We relocated. We did a lot of research on Grants Pass, and it was the most beautiful place we've ever been. We love it here. And in 7 months, I've noticed, and I researched this, I drove to the town, I looked at things, we drove on every single street in this town before we put a check in it anywhere, and we fell in love with it. In 7 months, I can't believe what's gone on. Now, I don't go to meetings with issues without solutions, and I never have in my career. I have a solution for this, I think, but it takes cooperation. It's going to take a lot of hard work. But first of all, who are these people, and where do they come from? Why don't we have a register in this city for any person that wants to come in the city, live in it illegally? They must register first. At that point, they're going to get some type of a card that they're going to show the police or the fire department. Their tents are going to be marked, and they're going to be tracked, and they're going to be helped, or they're going to be moved out. Second situation is, why doesn't the city come up with a designated homeless area? I don't know what that means, but I do know there's a lot of empty places in the city, owned by the city, that could very easily be a designated location for these people. And I have another question for the council. How many of you in the last 5 days have walked through these parks? Have you looked at it? Thank you. Have you talked to these people? By the way, they're coming from Oregon. They're coming from San Francisco. They're coming from Medford, because this is a free-for-all, man. This is where I would go. If you don't understand, you've got to get out and talk to these people. We should have a registration. Nobody should come in this city illegally. If they need help, let's get them help. If they're a drug addict, let's get them in jail or out of the city. Because it's only going to get worse, because you have put a bowl of water and a bowl of food in the middle of this town and said, come and eat, come and live, and come and destroy our city for free. It really blows my mind, coming from the worst place I could imagine. After 55 years in Southern California, I left there because they lost control. San Francisco's lost control. Portland's lost control. Grants Pass is damn near close to losing control. And I'm blown away by this. And by the looks on a lot of the faces up here, I really wonder who really cares. I will be here more, all right? I'm embarrassed to bring my friends up here right now. It's kind of weird. It's like, what am I talking about? I'm embarrassed to bring people to one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. I will come to support a solution, and I think everybody here will do the same thing. We'll clean the parks, get them out of them first, and don't let them back in. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jenny Stegmiller. I live in the county, own properties in the city. I wanted to tell you a story about Brandon. He lived in Riverside Park until just about a month or 6 weeks ago. He lived in a tent, and he was an addict. And I was talking with his mom, and he called his mom and he said, okay, I'm ready to go. And he went off to Medford, and he's now clean. He got detoxed in 30 days, and now he lives in a halfway house, and he'll be there for about 90 days or 120 days. I know Brandon because he worked for us a few years ago over at Parkway Village. And when he worked for us, and he was clean at the time, he was an amazing worker. So I'm really praying for Brandon. So I tell you this because, of course, as we know, when addicts are on their way to get clean, they blame everybody else for their addiction. So, of course, Brandon blames all of us. But actually, he blames the people who brought him food, the people who brought him needles. Last time I talked to you, I said, please do something about Max's mission and the people who bring the food to the park and the people who bring the trash to the park. They have to stop doing that. If an addict wants needles, send them to Max's mission. They're only a half mile from Riverside Park. They're only a half mile from Baker's Park. They can walk there. They can go to Max's mission, which would make it safer for the kids in the park. So, anyways, pray for Brandon, please, so he stays clean. He's a good kid. I also really keep pondering this. The injunction that everybody keeps talking about allows for resting in the park, but I've never seen anything about tents in the park. And it's the injunction, I think, states that the city council is allowed to make rules for time, place, and manner for resting in the park. So I am baffled why our little community of 30 people at Riverside, River Park Terrace is surrounded by tents, tiny homes, and they keep getting bigger, and it makes more difficult for our officers to remove them. It's just, and now they're all down by the river. I'm just so confused. And then one last thing, when we had Parkway Village, we had some campers, almost 40 campers up along the embankment of the road, and I contacted one of the guys from ODOT, and they came in and removed all the campers, and they never came back. And he shared a great story with us about how they're able to deal with that. And they also removed them from off four corners and under the parkway. You might want to talk to them, see how that works for them, because it really worked for us. Thank you.
Somebody else?
Good evening. My name is Cretia Granat. I am not in the city limits. I'm one house away. I just wanted to say that I know you guys can't see everything that's going on. You're obviously hearing what's going on. And I just wanted to point out that the U-turn for Christ, it's right backed up to the area. They keep putting their furniture out. The homeless camps that is right behind that building, I saw them mowing a lawn. They were barbecuing. I saw them carrying a couch into their new condo area. Somebody has to stop U-turn for Christ. I know they're trying to make money. I know it's a profitable business for them. They're also a U-turn for Christ is people getting back on their feet. So they're searching to make money also. But we just need to draw the line on what we're giving these people. They put furniture out there to show what they have, and there's homeless people taking it to the park and enjoying it. It just doesn't seem fair that we work so hard for our money, as you guys all do. You're sitting here at 8:30 at night when you want to go home. This is your job. We rely on you to help us, to be a team. What happened to teamwork? Our kids can't practice in parks anymore. They can't play anymore. I'm just in awe. 7 months here, I thought this was my dream place. I wanted to retire here. Right now, I'm thinking of a realtor. The sign up over 6th Street, it's the climate. It should be about the homeless. And that's sad. Because every tourist that's going to come here, they're going to laugh at us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Howard. I live in the county, and I wanted to also thank the council and voice my support for keeping the caveman pool open. I was a swimmer growing up, and I also worked as a lifeguard from when I was 15 years old, so I know firsthand how important pools can be for recreation and fitness and for employment for kids and teens and young adults. I moved down here from Portland just recently, and we saw when they closed the pools for COVID, that became what they called a cascading budget issue, where because the pools didn't generate revenue, they weren't able to keep them open again the following year. And since the pools were closed, a lot of the parks that they existed in became homeless campgrounds. So I think pools are important. I think we should keep Caveman Pool open, and I applaud the council for doing so. Thank you.
Is there somebody else? Step on up, state your name, and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Matt Morris, I'll make this short. I love my mom. She spoke a few minutes ago. I don't want her on the front page of the local newspaper that she's been accosted in the park or someplace else. You got to do something. I don't know what this lawsuit's about, but it can't be that homeless people have more rights than the taxpayers who pay for these things. You need to keep my mom safe, and right now she's not. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Kathy Millard, Grants Pass. Good evening. We the people are worrying about the condition of our town. We have got to seek a balance for us living here to enjoy our town, including our parks. What is going to happen when that House Bill 3501 gets in place? They're voting on it tomorrow to not be able to remove them, or you get fined $1,000. What's going to happen? Measure 42 or whatever got put in about the border, what are we going to do when that's lifted? Because Biden's border's still open and they're coming. Talked to the Greyhound bus. They said if the homeless has a ticket, they bring them. You have been offered and told by the county commissioners, you've got property on Jones Creek and G Street to use to make them go and get those tents out of our town. You pay attention and please do it. Because we are begging you, we want our life back. We have had to modify our life to accommodate them. And you can see by the crowd here tonight, we've had it. Our concerts can no longer be in the park. They're at the fairgrounds. I don't call that fun on cement. We can't have that car show, and we've been having it for how many years? But yet, Boatnik comes and you have a contract with the Active Club and they get it cleared out. Well, what about the contract and the taxes we pay? Why can't we have it cleaned out? You've got that property on Jones Creek and G Street, and I am suggesting that you use it. Speaking for all of us.
Is there somebody else? All right. Oh, she's stepping up to talk? Oh, okay. All right, I'll close public comment. Okay.
At the beginning of the session, you mentioned that if there were any questions that the council would answer them at the end of the session. Is that
Well, the council has an opportunity to respond now if they want. Okay, if they want to respond to that, they can do so. Thank you. I'm first going to address some of the issues that were raised tonight. First of all, as a couple people stated, the pool was facing closure this year, but it will remain open. The council found a path to fund it for the season. House Bill 3501, which was called the Right to Rest, has already died, so we won't have to worry about that. As far as the parks go, I know you all are frustrated, and we are frustrated too. What happened is that the city of Grants Pass was sued by several homeless people, and we lost. And what they were claiming was that we were enforcing our no camping ordinance. We do have a no camping ordinance that's been in place for years. It's illegal to camp in Grants Pass City Parks. But when people don't have a home, they can't sleep on private property, and when they can't sleep on public property either, that leaves them with nowhere to be. And the court ruled that it's not illegal to be homeless, and so we have to allow them a place to sleep somewhere. And the court decided that that would be our public parks here in Grants Pass because we don't have low barrier shelters, or at this time we have a couple low barrier shelters, but not adequate low barrier shelters for people to have a place to go. After listening to all of you, I'm sure you'd want to hear this information. There's two parts to the lawsuit. One is the judge's decision and one is the injunction. And so when you're reading them, you have to read both parts. But the injunction in particular, it does state that there's time and place rules and that homeless people can camp basically from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It depends a little bit on the season. So theoretically, if the injunction were the only thing in place, you would see people sleeping at night and then we'd be able to clear them out during the day. Unfortunately, there's also a state law that passed in the summer of 2021 that requires 72 hours notice before we can move people along. And so what that does is it makes it so that our officers come and they see somebody camping and they give them notice, and then the people get to stay for 3 more days until the officers can come back and let them go. And this is absolutely not something that the city of Grants Pass wants. I don't think any of my colleagues here on the council want this. It's the law that we have to abide with. And I know people ask frequently, to just disobey the ordinance or the injunction, but as somebody said, we can't enforce the law by breaking the law. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure, I don't know exactly what the consequences would be if we were to avoid the injunction and just try to kick people out of our parks, but I'm sure there would be consequences, and it's not responsible governance to do that. The city is not providing any handouts to people. We don't provide them sleeping bags, tents, meals, needles. Those are being done by other organizations, not the city. It is contributing to part of the problem. I don't think our officers are being fooled by the tops of tents changing. They want those tends to be down when they come back 72 hours later. So people might be trying to play some sort of a tarp shuffle game, but that's not going to work. Unfortunately, this year, the Back to the 50s show, car show did decide to move to the fairgrounds. Initially, we had kind of a misunderstanding, I think, about what the situation in the park was going to be. And then by the time we got it cleared up, they had already made the decision to move. So we're hoping they'll be able to come back next year. We did offer them the ability to rent the same way that we do to the Boatneck show. Just didn't work out. I think everybody here would love to have that show at the park. We want the concerts in the park. We want Boatneck to be at the park. We want kids and families and people walking their dogs to be able to use the park. So we are on your side. We're going to continue to look for solutions. We're talking to our attorneys next Monday. There are things that we can do probably and things that we can't. So we do hear you. We're working on it. We can't pick one park, as somebody suggested, because the injunction requires us to allow camping in all the public parks except for Reinhardt. So that's, part of the court order, and that's why we're doing it that way. We recognize that the parks are near homes, they're near schools, they're all in residential neighborhoods. So it's a bad situation, I guess. I know that I personally get accused a lot of wanting to help the homeless, and really what I want to do is I want to get people out of our parks, and that's what I wanted from the very beginning. And I think that there is a part of, me and maybe this community that wants to help people and solve homelessness, but solving homelessness is a different problem than just getting people out of our parks. And so as far as I'm concerned, the key to getting people out of the parks is to create an alternate place for them to go. And whether that's an empty lot, like somebody said, whether it's something we already own or something we have to buy or a building or a campground, that's all kind of up for discussion. But the lawsuit very clearly says that the reason why we have to allow them in our parks is because they don't have anywhere else to go. So let's give them somewhere else to go. We can't make them go there. As somebody also said, we can't round them up. This isn't an internment camp situation. But what we can say, once we have it in place, and obviously the lawsuit will need to be dealt with, we can say, you can't camp in our park. You can go to this other place. And then if the person chooses not to go there, then we can enforce the no camping in the park or the get off private property or whatever the next situation is. But right now, we are kind of at a standstill where we don't have an alternative place to go. And I guess I just want to be very clear, that is why I've been talking nonstop for 2.5 years about setting up an alternative place to go, is not because low barrier is the right way or the wrong way, or we need, drug treatment or mental health treatment services. All of those things, are icing on the cake, I guess. We need to establish an alternative place for people to go. And so I just want to be very clear about that. And I will let any of the other councilors respond. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I'll answer your question back there. I go to the park almost every day. I'm in ward. My ward is Morrison, Baker, Riverside, and I go to Tussing sometimes too. So I just want to let you know that. I probably go there sometimes more than one time a day just to drive through, because I cannot go home without them just going by one of them. So trust me, I go by and I see all of them, and I'm taking tons of pictures and whatever else. I wanted to answer her question next. There's a House Bill 2973. It's to repeal Measure 110. We do have a state rep, Lily Morgan. You can reach out to her. We want that repealed. Lily Morgan's your contact. That's who's putting that up right now. So you can, that's Measure 110. Repeal is 2973. I think that's it. You know, I've been talking up here, I've brought up a lot of things, maybe not here, but in asking questions. I think we can have stricter ordinances. Roseburg has one about fires, flame items. I was looking through their ordinances today. I think we need to do that. We just had a fire last week in Baker Park, 10 on fire, propane tanks sissing. So that was last weekend. That's not our first one. We've had people die already in a tent. I think we could do better there. I think we could do better on stricter ordinances. I've brought that up. Drugs. I don't understand why you get caught one time and you get, and well, oh, it's 30 days and we just go to the next park and the next park. Why can't it be a different scale? If you're doing drugs in our park, it should be an automatic out of our park. I've brought this up, but no, I can't get any traction up here. Enabling, I brought this up last meeting, and I was berated on social media about bringing up enabling happening in our parks. People wanted to attack me for Max's mission, enabling. They can attack me again. I think the enabling is horrible. If they're handing out needles, why don't they collect needles too? Why don't they take some back? Why don't they remove stuff? If you're feeding them and that's your mission, why don't you pick up the trash? If that's your mission to feed people, which I disagree with you, you should go around and pick up stuff too. Maybe we need to make an ordinance on that. Maybe we need to make stricter rules on, making a mess down there. Also, there's no camping is only resting. So when I hear the word camping, camping's illegal. Resting is what the injunction says. They get to rest. I don't know why we have camps, stoves, everything else, but everybody thinks it's camping. It's resting. Sorry, I got all these. So far this year, we've had 68 ODs and 9 deaths just in our city limits. And we have 33 beds available for men at the mission and 45 women and children beds. So obviously, they don't want to use services. We got plenty of them. I'm there. I want to change things, but I'm only one person. That's all I got to say.
Anybody else? All right, Karen, how about the emails? I'm sorry, public comments over. Oh, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you also for a little bit of the backstory on the injunction. I think it's really important, especially for folks who are here for the first time tonight. Thank you for coming. As you've heard from the mayor, along with the injunction and the 72-hour state law rule in regards to resting in the parks, those two things are completely out of our hands. However, we did spend quite some time, as was stated, about 2.5 years now, going back and forth about creating some type of designated place for the council, for homeless people. And I think it's really important also for everyone to know the history there, that we do have a few strong advocates for action on homelessness on the council. We have a few counselors who believe homelessness is directly linked to social deviance and that only, therefore choosing not to do anything. We have another counselor who perhaps wants to wait out the lawsuit and see how that goes, and that goes into the box of not doing anything. We have another counselor who is easily waived from following best practice when addressing homelessness. So you can see that the majority of council has chosen for 2.5 years not to do something. We have ran around the problem and had meetings about meetings. So to put it in short, we haven't done anything, and it's the majority of the council that has led us to that decision. Let's see here. Oh, before I do forget, I did want to answer that gentleman's question. I actually went through the park today and I went for a bike ride, so I did that today, and I have done that within the last couple days. It wasn't just today, an outlier. I did also want to address that Merlin does have homeless people. There was a gentleman who said that there is no homeless people there. The county does have a very bad homeless problem. You can look at the sheriff's office logs. They are consistently dealing with homeless people. So it is a problem in the county. It does exist. Just because you're not visibly seeing it doesn't mean it's not there. Point of order, the floor
Yeah,
is
no
mine.
outbursts from the
Thank you.
floor, please.
Thank you, the floor is mine. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does exist. I do agree with everyone that has called for finding a designated location. Although the council has gone completely stale on that discussion, I do believe that that is our responsibility to take up that discussion and do something. It's undeniable, all the cries for help that we've heard this evening. Let's see here. There was another statement that I wanted to make sure to clarify. There was a statement that someone went crazy and killed someone at Walmart the other day, and I wanted to assure the community that that was not the case. That person was charged with driving while intoxicated. That's how that person was killed, was with a vehicle, an intoxicated driver. So it wasn't necessarily as described there. When the council has had discussions about taking action and either creating an urban campground or helping to facilitate some type of navigation center, we have people that do come and say, not in my backyard. And so not only are the advocates who want to do something about this struggling with their colleagues who do not, we also struggle with community members who don't want to see it in any corner of the community. We've tried the north end of town, we've tried the southwest part of town, we've tried multiple places, and we hear from the community, don't put it here. So that's another factor that is a challenge when considering a solution for this. So all things considered, to where we are today, I am in complete agreement with the mayor, and it sounds like Councilor Yonker wants to take some action on it. I agree with the community members, and I hope that the rest of the council comes along.
Brian.
Thank you. Public comments over, sorry. Thank you all for coming tonight. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she walks to school every morning through one of our parks early before there's a lot of people there, and I worry about that. So I understand the situation. I have been trying to take action on this problem for over 2 years. I have worked on different solutions. Councilor Auger just described a lot of them, and the bottom line is that there's a majority of council that doesn't want to take action. We have this lot right across the street. We could designate that. There's 10 different solutions that we could implement, and they all get shot down. So I'm not going to name names, but there's people up here that want to wait out the lawsuit, that don't want to take action, that feel like giving them a designated place would be enabling, and all that keeps the parks degrading further and further. So a place for them to go would help the situation in the parks. It's not necessarily going to make every single homeless person disappear, but it will make the problem better. So I would encourage you to contact city councilors individually and tell them how you feel and be persistent. Thank you.
I'll just add as well, because I didn't mention it earlier, that we did appeal the lawsuit, and it was upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court. A 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the original decision, so that means that we continue to lose. We did ask for an en banc hearing, which means that a larger panel of the Ninth Circuit would also rule on it. This happened, I think, in November, maybe, or it's been quite a while. It's been months now that we've been waiting for a decision. So we'll hear back, hopefully soon, what the larger panel of judges thinks about this. But then, to some degree, no matter what they say, we're expecting it may go to the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court has the right to either take the case or not take the case. So it may be held up in lawsuit for a while. Regarding property, though, you know, the difference between resting and camping is kind of vague, but our lawsuit does say that people have a right to keep their stuff with them, that they have a right to protect themselves from the elements and stay warm. So that's kind of where the tents come into it, where barbecues and sofas and stuff come into play. Obviously, that's not part of keeping yourself warm, or maybe it is, if depending on how you use the barbecue. But one thing that I think is really significantly different than Portland that people may not realize is that the city of Portland for a long time was not doing anything to enforce homelessness, and people were just accumulating garbage and huge collections of personal property, and they were able to just kind of stay there indefinitely. And we have been enforcing all along, and at first we were able to turn the camps over every 24 hours, which was nice. And the 72-hour rule has really changed our ability. So we see people staying for days at a time, and we have seen kind of a, as the homeless problem has grown and more people have been homeless for longer periods of time, they've accumulated more stuff. But it is really important, and we absolutely are enforcing, as much as we can, right? We have limited capacity with officers. We don't, we do have cameras in the park. I know someone mentioned that earlier. We don't have the manpower to just have, Big Brother sitting there watching and saying, aha, every single time something happens. So police are enforcing drugs, loose dogs, littering, assaults, anything that they can, but we don't have the capacity to have people there 24/7 watching for this. But we are trying to make people break down their tents and move them as much as we can, so that we don't just get that huge buildup of stuff. Joel has something to say.
So the discussion today is a lot different than it was last year at this time, and then it's a lot different than 2 years ago at this time. And I anticipate that it's going to intensify even more so a year from now as we go on this slippery slope. I am responsible, the city council is responsible for the city, okay? We cannot blame other people. We cannot make it into a political issue for my political campaign. See what I've done. See how I care more than somebody else. We got to work together. That's the county and the city and this city council, and that's been an issue. Unfortunately, it's been an issue. One of the nonprofit, right now we got low barrier campgrounds in every park. Grants Pass has a lot of low barrier campgrounds right now in every park. We got a navigation center that the nonprofits, and they go to every park, and they give out the food and the clothing, and the reason they do that is because the parks are free. Okay. And they've come to us and wanted us to buy a place so that they can have the low barrier campground there. We had some money to do that. Instead, we put it into increased treatment, which was desperately needed. It's not like they're mutually exclusive for addiction treatment and mental health, because a lot of these people need help that way also. The most cognizant, the only word I can think of, it's probably not the right word, intelligent approach that I've heard, because every city is struggling with this. People that have urban campgrounds are struggling with this. Bend's struggling with this. People are moving out of Bend, and they got 4 low barrier organized campgrounds. Portland has a bunch of them, and they're going to have some more. And it hasn't solved the problem. It's probably helped some people, but it hasn't solved the problem. So as we move forward, the 4 points that I've heard, and it actually came from one of the nonprofits here in town. First thing was increased services for mental health, increased services for drug addiction, low-income housing, like was mentioned by a couple of our participants, in which we've made some effort, and we've got some things that haven't been built yet, but they're, when you look at the housing units that have been built in Grants Pass and the housing units that are going to be built, there's progress ahead of us. And then the last one was interesting that this nonprofit talked about, and that was accountability. And that was nonprofit accountability, city council accountability, and people in the parks accountability, that we need to learn how to do that. And one of the things that another commenter talked about with what we need to learn is what is the fine line together, because if we're not together on it, what is the fine line between enabling and accountability? Because, you know, if you're raising kids, you've experienced that, I've experienced that. Sometimes there's tough love, sometimes you need to hug your daughter and say, you know, it's okay, things are going to be better tomorrow, and I forgive you. So we need to do that, but we need to do it together. We can't do it by blaming each other. We can't do it by not supporting each other. And that not only goes for us up here, but for you down there. So it's a challenge, but it's what a community does. So I look forward to that. And I am responsible. I told my wife that tonight, and it doesn't feel good because I haven't fulfilled my responsibility.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you all for coming out. And we will take all your concerns into consideration as we move forward. Karen, how about those emails?
So there were actually no unanswered emails.
I think we should have been
Okay.
able to reply.
You can always email us or call us if you want to reply later, but we
Well, now
don't,
would have been the time.
nope, we're still meeting, but I'm sorry, our meeting is still continuing, but you're free to leave the room if you want, but we're not done here. So please take your conversations outside. All right, we're still meeting here. Please clear the room if you're going to talk. We're still continuing to meet. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which are items of such routine nature without controversy that they may be approved with a single action. And is anybody dying to read the consent agenda tonight, or would you like me to do it? Oh, thanks, Rick. You can do it.
On the consent agenda, 5A, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute agreements for the water treatment plant chemicals, sodium hypochlorite. 5B, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a sole source agreement for their water treatment plant chemicals, Camera 19. 5C, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the water treatment plant solids hauling. 5D, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly investment report for March 2023. 5E, motion approving the minutes for the City Council meeting of April 19th, 2023. 5F, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Parks Advisory Committee meeting of March 9th, 2023. 5G, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Historical Buildings and Sites Commission meeting of March 9th, 2023. 5H, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Sustainability and Energy Action Task Force meeting of March 8th, 2023. And 5I, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Area Planning Commission meeting of March 22, 2023. And I make a recommendation of adoption of these items as stated.
Thank you, Rick. Seconded by Dwayne. And we don't discuss this. So Rick, on the consent agenda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And is Valerie with us? No. Okay, motion passes 7-0. She was kind of in and out there during public comment. Items from Mayor Council. Do you have anything? Joel?
So a citizen asked me to read this, and I certainly am glad to do so. There's going to be a National Day of Prayer, and it's going to be this Thursday, May 4th at noon tomorrow. I think May 4th is tomorrow, right? At the Josephine County Courthouse to pray for our country. It will be approximately a 20-minute program with some scripture reading, personal citizen prayers, and then ending by singing some patriotic songs. And the group would love to have you join us, and it's for all the citizens of Josephine County or who would ever like to go. If anybody had more information, we only got a day here, but I got an email here, so if you want to get a hold of me at my email, I can send it to you. And prayer is a good thing. So, thank you.
DJ, did you have something?
Sure, I just wanted to acknowledge the request to put a banner over for the Josephine County Food Bank. You know, I know this is something that we need to consider and iron out as far as the details go, as we've talked about in the past. And I just wanted to call the light that we have an explicit request to do so, and we should probably process it accordingly.
This is to put a banner over the street?
Yeah, that's what the request is. I'm not sure how to handle it, but since we haven't really ironed out the details and criteria by which we approve these things, I think it would be fair to process individual requests until we establish that criteria.
We're currently working with ODOT. We have a meeting, I think, later this week, or maybe it's next week, to discuss this matter along with a couple of other things. They're taking our suggestions and they're seriously considering them and working with the state right now to do it from a statewide process. In the meantime, we don't technically have criteria like Councilor Fager was saying. So ideally, when these few come forward, either bring it up under matters from council staff. And in this one, it's the food bank. They're doing a fundraiser. It's for June 5th through the 19th to promote Shining a Light on Hunger. They'd like to have a banner for that event. If there's no objections from council, then we could either have the mayor or myself just go ahead and endorse that as okay, and they'd be able to do their banner. And all I would need is something, mayor, is something from the council saying that that's an okay thing.
All right, no objections. All right, is that it, DJ? All right, Brian?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a couple weeks ago, Jason Kennedy said he was going to be getting us a memo about the water treatment plant and the potential cost reductions, and he said that was going to be available in 1 or 2 weeks, and it's been 2 weeks, so I would like an update.
Well, I'll get you an update. We'll send you an email out, if not the memo shortly. Jason is out today.
Okay. The other item is when we were talking about the budget and looking at the LB projects and seeing that there are some items that have a lot of unrestricted funds sitting in them. I looked farther down the list and I saw Hillcrest Fire Station remodel only has $50,000 in there. And some of these park projects, we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would like to get on the agenda shifting some of that unrestricted money that's in other projects to get the Hillcrest Fire Station remodeled. And I would ask for at least a couple councilors to support putting that on the agenda.
Other people who are supportive of the workshop on that? Okay. He was, yeah, just I think Brian has another item and then you can.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, Dwayne.
Do we have a list of all the things that are wrong with the fire station? I know you spoke about them, but, and how much they're going to cost already, or the water, all that stuff?
We don't have any total cost yet. We're still working on the alerting system. We were supposed to have an electrician in there last week, but somehow his schedule didn't get us on for the work. We do still have companies that are working on total replacement costs, but we're waiting again for those. Beyond that, it's mostly just interior remodel work, but we've been putting that off until we get these more priority type projects addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, staff?
Yes, I had two items I wanted to bring up. The first one is that heavier lift one, and that is the request that was provided to you earlier this week with regards to the balancing of the fiscal year '24 budget. Staff did request that we make a change to council's recommendation with regards to the current program, and one of the cuts would be cutting the cadet program and parking enforcement. And our proposal is that keeping that, and our proposal is that we that we are able to keep the dispatch, 911 dispatcher supervisor, and a half CSO in exchange for the cadet program and parking enforcement. And if council's okay with that, then we'll prepare the budget as accordingly. If you'd like to keep with your original, then we'll keep with your original.
Chief, did you want to say something?
There was just one little piece in there too, because I helped craft that. Just the way this whole thing worked out, the request would be to maintain the first budget cut, which was to cut the parking enforcement. And instead of cutting the entire cadet program, we would be able to keep a small portion of that cadet program, which would maintain a position, a part-time position. We would be able to keep the CSO at a 0.5 FTE, half-time, and also keep that 911 dispatch supervisor. That's the request.
Questions or comment? Rob, then Brian?
Just to comment, because I haven't heard staff actually consider this, but, and the council needs to consider it also. So, we heard that parking enforcement revenues were lower than initially considered, and maybe it was 12,000. In a full year done well, it would probably be in excess of 15. But the thing we also didn't hear about is, I believe it's probably in the $20,000 to $25,000 range that that the parking permits bring in. Well, if there's no parking enforcement, then the parking permit income goes away. So the question is, is how much do you actually save if you're going to cut the parking enforcement? Because I 100% sure there will be zero parking enforcement. I've seen it for many, many years. People may not realize it, maybe because of whatever they watch on TV or whatever. Police officers never write a parking ticket. And when I say never, I mean virtually never write a parking ticket. CSOs, unless they are dedicated to the downtown or dedicated to the parking enforcement, virtually will not do it either. They're always doing something of a higher priority. So when we consider that the revenues would be gone, we consider that the revenues from permits would be gone, and they would be once it's clear that there's no enforcement. Why would anyone pay for a permit? When you add those two things together, what are you actually saving? So I don't think it's actually realistic what the chief or Aaron is recommending, or I should say not realistic. I don't think the figures, the savings, are realistic because you haven't considered the second part of that, which would be zero enforcement, which would mean eventually, within one 6-month cycle, there'd be no permits sold. Why would anyone buy a permit? In the same way that Measure 110 makes it, there's no incentive for people to not have drugs because there's no teeth to it, there'd be no teeth, so why would anyone get a permit? So I think that no one has actually looked at what we actually would save. It's less than half of what has been presented by staff so far. For that reason, I would be in favor of keeping the parking enforcement because it's probably at least half paid for. And you really can't say that about almost any other position, in public safety. There's nothing else we get a 50% discount on, but we get a 50% discount on the parking enforcement person.
I can speak to that if it's okay. The overall exercise is to prioritize resources based upon funding, and I'm tasked to do that, and that's what I thought I brought forward. And then brought another task, another exercise to figure out how do we continue going for a $286 deficit that continued over into a second run. But to speak to, first of all, ballot measure 110, actually Grants Pass PD's written over 800 tickets, which is the highest in the state of Oregon. And we don't find it kind of pointless. We think it's important to do that. And I understand what you're saying about police officers writing citations. I don't disagree with you on parking citations. We're far too busy. But we did have a pretty solid program with our CSOs spending time downtown writing parking tickets, and they'll still do that. Is it going to be robust? It's not, because we have to prioritize things. But I'm pretty good at prioritizing things, and I can tell you that CSOs will still do parking enforcement when they can. And that's why I thought, how great would it be to have a part-time CSO, instead of losing a full-time, that can do some of those additional things and hopefully write parking citations. And by doing the 0.5 FTE, hopefully the individual that would lose his job would be able to apply for that position and have a pretty good chance of getting it. So I think overall, in the big scheme of things, I have to do that. I have to look at things globally, how to keep the city as safe as possible. I believe that's the best choice to make with what we have.
Brian, did you still have something?
Yeah. So I read the email, and I think what I would propose as a solution is to accept staff's recommendations and keep the positions that we originally wanted to keep so we can not have any layoffs at the city. And the very simple way to do that is, instead of reducing the reserve to 28.86%, we reduce it to 28.5%. That extra 0.36% is enough to make that work. So that would be my proposition.
Joel?
Brian, I support Brian's position. One of the things I think that we're looking at, and we heard it today, is a trend in the city that isn't very good. And we don't have a lot of economic drivers in Grants Pass. Our downtown and the restaurants are one of them, especially with our older populations. And hopefully the younger population comes along and gets even bigger. So I don't look at it as a either-or situation. The one thing I'm looking at is buying some time to see what the water bill comes in at. And in the meantime, try not to have a deep spiral in terms of the social fabric of Grants Pass. I was going to suggest the same thing that Brian talked about, and I know it goes against what some folks up here would like to do in terms of budget. I think what we're doing is buying time to see what the water treatment plant looks like, and then see what we go for our next step. But we also need to be aware of the social fabric of Grants Pass, and the dispatch supervisor is a very important position. Regardless of what alternative we do, we have to have that, because that puts a lot of, that's a safety thing. I think Vanessa probably will tell us that more than anybody, because she's a dispatcher. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I would support what Brian said.
Rick?
I'm in support of the staff position of keeping the dispatcher and also the half-time CSO with the prospect that they could do some of the parking enforcement, and I think that would cover our bases. Thank you.
Are you suggesting you'd support doing that by using the reserve, changing the reserve?
I'm not on board with the reserve at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so you're talking about switching the positions. Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I support what Joel and Brian are saying, bringing down the reserve a little bit. And I'm just, I'm going to completely admit my own lack of complete understanding or ignorance on the subject. But I will say that, and he's not up here, he's not an elected official, he's just a public person who was chairman of the Budget Committee. I looked at his email, I studied his email. It made a lot of sense to me about reducing. I believe he talked about 28% and possibly even 26%. I don't know about 26%, but he made a very good case for reducing our reserves, or the reserves being, we'll say, unnecessarily robust. He made a good case for that. I'm talking about Tom Bradbeer. And I, quite frankly, am not adept enough in that area to be able to contradict them. It made sense to me. I don't think that there's a major problem reducing the reserves down to 28%. Maybe there's someone else up here who's a budget whiz and could really explain in depth what the risk would be to doing that, but I haven't heard that. So I would be in favor of bringing down the reserve a little bit more.
Vanessa?
I also support Councilor De La Grange's proposal.
Did you have something else, Joel? No? You had a finger at a moment?
Well, I just wanted to say in my career, what works best is to decentralize decisions. Of course, I worked for a federal agency, was the most decentralized of all agencies in the Forest Service, where the district ranger was king and got a budget and made those decisions. So I applaud the staff for coming forward in terms of bringing this to our attention. I think it's important because that you get good decisions when you have people on the ground that are involved and give feedback, and the lower we can make these decisions and still have the accountability of this council, the better off we're going to be.
All right, so right now I have 4 of you who have supported using some of the reserve fund. Anybody else want to comment, or are we going to call it a 4 majority at least for tonight? All right, nobody's going to argue against it, so we'll say that at this point we are agreeing to use reserves to fund those 2 positions.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Just one more item. It's a quick response turnaround. I got a notice from League of Oregon Cities that they're asking for the ability to use our logo in support of a bill change that would make sure that enterprise zones, and I don't know if you're familiar with the enterprise zones, it's when industrial manufacturing businesses invest a large dollar amount into their business, they can get some tax deferment if they are guaranteed a certain amount of employment during the life of the enterprise zone. So it's a win-win ultimately for everyone, and it's been a tool that's been utilized in Oregon for quite some time. They're wanting to make sure that their support, and they're wanting to use our logo to continue to help ask for the continuation of the enterprise zones, with also the potential amendment of allowing certain retail to be included also, and broadening the use of that as an economic tool. And if council's okay with that as an economic tool, we can move it forward with, I can just say that we can utilize our logo, and they're just asking everyone in the state for that. And Brad, I don't know if you have anything extra to add, because Brad got the same request. Anything extra? No.
Rick?
Just have a quick question. In the enterprise zone, does that normally include a waiver of taxes?
Yes, that waiver of taxes is included for usually like a 5-year period. And it could be extended for another 2 more 5-year periods based on employment certifications.
And is there ability within that rule to adjust the taxes? In other words, is it 100% during that 5 years? Or can you say 50%, or do you have that option? Do you know?
Well, there is the group that manages our enterprise zones is so ready, and there is a percentage breakdown that you can ask for your tax credits based on the number of FTE that you are hiring compared to your investment that you're doing.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Brian?
Just to get clarity on what the ask is, they are advocating for enterprise zones to be expanded out of industrial into commercial or specifically retail?
It says here retail. They're wanting to also include the potential of retail operations.
So then that would, like a shop downtown would be an enterprise zone, or I just not totally sure how this would work.
It would be a retail shop that does a certain capital investment that then is accompanied with an increase in FTE and workforce labor, would be able to apply if they're in an enterprise zone, and we are included in an enterprise zone.
Okay, thanks.
Vanessa, then Rob?
What's the deadline for this?
I think this week, yeah.
Are we able to receive an email or a blurb on, is it a House bill, is it a Senate bill, what is it exactly?
It's Senate Bill 1084 or House Bill 3286.
Okay. Thank you.
Rob?
So I'm confused by what you just said, Aaron, because it's probably 5 years ago now when we had the enterprise zone for the G Street Plaza. It was going to be a $12 million tax abatement, and that was retail. So I don't understand. You say they want to move into retail, but it's already been there, right?
Well, I think his plan, if I remember correctly, it was not necessary for retail, but it's for a corporate office. And so that G Street Plaza wasn't really going to be, it wasn't going to be for a G Street Plaza retail, but it was going to be for his corporate offices.
Brian?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to clarify, so that still is not industrial. So is that something outside of the enterprise zone that the city did on our own?
No, it fit within the industrial business park type of ability for that enterprise zone. They're wanting to extend it to also retail.
Okay.
Hang on just a sec, guys. So it sounds like this would just open up the possibilities for more types of businesses to be able to access the enterprise zone, but it wouldn't necessarily change the way we do things in this town unless we wanted to designate funds for a particular project.
Yeah, it wouldn't change anything we're doing, and as we said, our agent for the enterprise zone is so ready. They're the agent for all of the, for Josephine County and Jackson County.
So the question now is just whether you're willing to have us put our logo on this, for a statewide change, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that we have to do anything a particular way in our town, should it pass. Rick, and then Joel?
So I just wanted clarification, even though somebody makes an application to be included in enterprise zone, we, the city council, still have the discretion to declare or not declare one, or declare the business eligible, or the rules of that such where we are removed from?
No, yeah, we do, like Councilor Pell mentioned, a few years back, there was a large one that was asked for, and it needed to go through an approval process.
Joel?
So I just wanted to confirm what Rick said. So this gives us another tool in the toolbox, but the council still gets to exercise discretion in where and how it's applied. Yeah, I say go ahead and put our logo on it. Gives us another tool.
Is there anyone who objects? All right. We'll do that. Thanks for asking.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Augustus, welcome back.
Thank you. So I noticed that we have, for the May 15th workshop scheduled, the contract for the feral cats. I'm not going to be present at the meeting on the 17th. However, I wanted to give the proponents of the contract an opportunity to have public comment. During the workshop, there's normally not public comment, so I just wanted to request from council that we adjourn into a regular meeting so we can provide that opportunity and not have to change the date of the meeting.
At the workshop?
Yes, that's correct.
Were we then going to put that on a subsequent meeting, or I'm not sure what needs to be done on the feral cats?
I wasn't here when it got scheduled for a workshop. The contract itself is complete. I've been in contact with the proponents of the contract. It's on a workshop. They wouldn't have an opportunity to speak on it in a public comment. I'd like for council to take care of it that day instead of pushing it to the next business meeting. The next business meeting I would be absent. I'm going to be in Silverton for Oregon City Attorneys Association conference. And I didn't want to push it to a subsequent meeting, which I believe would be June. So I was requesting to adjourn into a regular session during that workshop to provide the proponents an opportunity for public comment, and so that council could make that decision then and there that day.
Okay. Are you interested in having public comment on the feral cat discussion on the 15th? Yes? Okay, do we actually need to adjourn into a special meeting, or can we just allow public comment on that one item?
You know what? I think that would be, that's your prerogative. I mean, so long as they have a comment period.
Okay,
But you're also asking us to take action, correct?
That's correct. So then, yeah.
gotcha.
But
Okay.
it would be quite short. The contract itself is not very,
All right, I just didn't want us to have to all spin around in our chairs and adjourn and reopen the meeting. If it was just to have public comment, we could just let people speak. But if, we'll do a special meeting for feral cats. It'll be an extra special meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah.
I got one more, a palate cleansing good, bad, good sandwich. Been working on that. So we got Foothill and Agnes repaired today, so feel free to drive through there with open cups if you want. You won't spill your drink. The bad part of that would be if you tried to use that intersection today. It was pretty bad. So some good things to learn for as we try to make a roundabout there in future years. So we kept the traffic flowing pretty well, but if you guys got some calls, we apologize, but it's all done and opened up now. The last thing we need to do is stripe it, and we'll do that probably later this week. And then one more good thing, it's been a long time coming, but we are putting out Safe Routes to School Lincoln Elementary Phase 1 project. It'll be coming out later this week for advertising, so I know we've been waiting a long time on that one. Phase 1 is going to take care of 10th Street right in front of the school, as well as Churchill, and put in a couple of raised pedestrian crossings. So that'll be the most important part of it, and then we'll come back in after we acquire some right-of-way the next year and finish it up.
Cool. Chief?
I did have one thing that I wanted to share, and this is a testament to great partnerships, and this partnership I'm speaking to is between the Josephine County Sheriff's Department and the Grants Pass PD. We just finished a really robust program on our CAD system. That's our computer-aided dispatch. And as you all know, the importance of interoperability is pretty massive with public safety. And they are now on our system. So all of law enforcement in Josephine County is on the same system. It's a really big deal. We have a robust system, which is called Tyler Technology, that we paid a lot of money for. We authorized them to piggyback off of our product, and now they have that system in the county as well. And I think it's a big win. It's a big win for the county, that type of partnership, and I look forward to continuing to better our interoperability countywide. So I just wanted to share that success story.
Cool, thanks. Anything else? Going once, going twice? All right. Brian?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Rick. All right, discussion, Everybody in favor of adjourning tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You were an automatic vote.